Let's go.
Let's go. Oh, no.
Do you want to?
Sorry. I'll let you.
Next one.
I'm excited and I feel relaxed and I'm ready to party. Let's say sorry. You don't need to do that. You don't need to apologize. It's a fucked up female habit. You don't need to be sorry for anything ever.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I don't have rage issues.
I have nothing to prove to you.
When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Citizen Dame, the podcast where everybody is queer, because it's Pride Month, and yeah, we're very excited about that. My name is Lauren Humphreys Brooks, and with me, as always, is Karen Peterson. Hello, Karen.
Hello.
That was a very deep and sultry hello. Wow.
It was a vibe.
It's a vibe this month. This month we are going to talk about homoeroticism and movies that are totally gay, but that aren't explicitly gay. And I think that, we're going to get into a little bit of like what that means and how we want to talk about and everything. But first, Karen, how are you?
I'm good. I'm part of a statewide board that puts on a conference every year, and that conference ended yesterday, and so it's been a very, very busy week, but it went super well. Our attendees, we had almost 300 attendees and from across California, and they had a great time. We got a lot of excellent, just enthusiastic responses from people. So that just makes you feel good,
Yes, that's great.
Thank you.
That's
How
great.
are you?
I'm doing pretty well. We've gone from it being practically fall in New York to it being the height of summer again. It is in the 90s and very humid here in New York City. So so get to have that fun. My dog has decided that he really, really, really wants to be outside lying in the sun, but also he doesn't want to be hot. So he's doing his usual summer thing of like, I want to go outside and then I want to come inside and lie in front of the fan and then I want to go back outside. It's just like this cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely New York summertime. We're definitely there. And apparently go on.
Well, I was just gonna say it was 90 degrees yesterday, and now I think the high today is 72.
See, that's nice.
We're getting spring weather still. It's wild.
We are gonna get more spring weather again. We've just had a couple of hot days, and we're gonna go back into like the 70s and 80s, which is much more manageable. Actually, yesterday was actually quite nice, even though it was very hot. But it's very humid today. And that's where it gets you in this part of the country.
Yep. It's true. I do also want to say we had elections this week in California, and we had primaries, and California does primaries a little differently than like everyone everywhere.
Yeah, you guys are weird. I've been trying to figure out what the hell is going on over there. I'm like, I don't know what's happened, but okay.
So when California basically attained a super majority in the early 2000s or late 90s, where the Democrats basically run the state, even though California is a purple state, the Democrats hold the majority in the Senate, the state assembly. We've had other than Arnold Schwarzenegger, we've had Democratic governors since Pete Wilson in the 90s. And so at some point they decided to go to a top two primary instead of a party closed primary process. Mm-hmm. So now everybody votes for all of the statewide seats, and then the top two. And this actually is not just statewide. This also is the House of Representatives and the Senate. The only one that this doesn't work for is the president. But yeah, so we have a top two primary. So the top two candidates move forward to the general election, and no matter what party they're in. So that's what happened this week. And in our governor's race, Javier Becerra, who is a former congressman, He managed to best um oh my gosh, I just blinked on his name. Tom Steyer, who is a billionaire who's been outspending everybody by a lot. And it's so fun to me when billionaires are like, I cannot be bought. It's like, yeah, no shit. It's because you bought everybody else. um, but yeah, and I'm not saying Tom Steyer is a bad person. I don't know. I don't inherently trust him just because he says a lot of really good things. I don't just trust that he would do the things that he says, you know? Anyway, but I was kind of hoping that it would be Becerra and Steyer in the general election. Instead, the Republican candidate Steve Hilton managed to sneak in there. It looks like they're not done counting votes, but it looks like it's going to be Becerra and Hilton in the general election. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, and then in LA, I don't know what you all are doing over there. I'm not in Los Angeles, so I don't vote for the LA mayor, which is run as a non-party. It's a nonpartisan election, so there's not there's not a specifically a primary for Los Angeles mayor. It's if somebody gets more than 50% of the vote in the primary, they become the mayor. If nobody does, then they do a top two runoff.
Okay.
And LA, are we being serious about this Spencer Pratt thing? Come on. Oh my gosh. You had all these other choices and it's insane. So Karen Bass, the current mayor, who has been met with a lot of controversy in her first term, not necessarily who I would love to see go on to another term, but given her competition, it's like, to me, it's an easy choice. But I, again, don't live in Los Angeles, so I would love to live in a world where failed reality TV stars don't get to become politicians.
I think that should be a rule, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely I noticed some of the Spencer Pratt stuff, and there's all of this stuff that I think that the rest of the country, obviously, we do not understand what's going on in California, but I know that there's been a bunch of influencers who are like, oh my God, California's red, and all of this stuff. And it's I'm pretty positive that's not how it works.
No.
But
we are a very purple state, and I think people they think, oh, California is deep blue because that's how our elections go. But there are more registered Republicans in California than there are in the state of Texas. And that's just because that's how our population is. So it actually is a very purple state.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the same thing is it's fairly similar with New York. If you really look at New York, the city dominates everything because of the way that our state population kind of falls out. So we're a blue state, but it's really New York City and kind of the environs of New York City. And then you go upstate, it gets redder and redder and redder. You look at a lot of the places where I come from, which is a fairly liberal town, but it's in the middle of a red county. And a huge section of the state is red, but the population of New York City just eats it all up, basically, when it comes to those statewide elections.
Yeah, it's interesting in California too, because our elections, when we vote for people, they tend to go blue in most areas, but when we have statewide initiatives, ballot measures and things, it's a lot more moderate leaning conservative. It's interesting.
Well, that's that's where you get stuff like Prop 8 and things like that. So yeah, so it's interesting. We're all kind of paying attention. I know that New York, we have our early voting, I believe, starts next week here in New York. And in New York City, my choices are pretty much between really liberal and really, really, really liberal. Yeah, and we don't, of course, have the mayoral election, which is the real excitement last year. But the major excitement this year is the Knicks. and I
That
didn't
is a
even
big deal.
yeah, it was a big deal, and I didn't even know what was going on. And like all these people in my building were like, "Who's going to watch the Knicks?" I was like, "What the fuck is happening?"
You're like, it's
And
June. The Knicks aren't still playing.
well, that's part of the excitement, obviously. And like our mayor rescinded bedtime. There is no bedtime for the children of New York City. Um, he did. He had an
That's so
executive.
cute.
He had an executive
That's
order.
so cute.
Everybody, all of the children of New York, the no bedtime by order of the mayor. They're allowed to stay up and watch the Knicks.
I love that. That's adorable.
So yeah. So that's what's going on here.
Oh, how fun. New York
Yeah.
sounds so fun right now.
It's so exciting. Like we're not going to talk politics this entire time, but I do have to say it's both exciting and horrifying when you're like, oh, we actually have a government that functions. We actually have a like it's working. Like just like, oh, we're going to fill the potholes, and he fills the potholes.
What?
The potholes get filled. Like,
What?
they got filled. And it's like, oh my God. Like, what do you mean you could just do that?
That's like the opposite of a dystopia.
It's fantastic. It's just like and I do think like we're all so scarred, honestly, from having and from realizing it's like you can actually just say you're going to do something and then you do it and it works. Like it actually worked.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing having a functional city government. Wow. Of the biggest city in the United States. So anyways, it is Pride Month, which we are very excited about. And
Yeah, we are.
And we decided for this Pride Month, we've done a lot of different things over like celebrating Pride over the years. But we wanted to do films that were basically really steeped in homoeroticism, but didn't necessarily represent themselves as queer. And so we're going to talk about some favorites as well as some slightly lesser known ones, but I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. So to start off with, we are going to begin with one of the gayest films of the 1990s. That is nonetheless never explicitly gay. And that is Point Break from 1991, directed, of course, by our beloved Kathryn Bigelow, and starring Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze, Gary Busey, and Lori Petty. And, you know, if you haven't seen Point Break, go and watch Point Break. Obviously, we're going to spoil everything. But if you need a little bit of a refresher, it is about a rookie FBI agent, Johnny Utah, played by Keanu Reeves. It's the best name. It is the best name. Don't even. Johnny Utah. That's his name. He's an FBI agent. He's a former quarterback from Ohio State. Total badass, man. And he is investigating a string of bank robberies with his partner, played by Gary Busey. And these are bank robberies that are being committed by the quote ex-presidents who wear rubber masks, representing the like some former presidents, including Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, Richard Nixon, and Lyndon B. Johnson. And this leads them eventually to investigating the surfer crowd, and kind of trying to figure out if like Gary Busey's character has a theory that these guys are surfers, and that what they're doing is that they're actually funding their endless summer, as it were. So they're funding all of their activities by robbing banks because of the pattern of the robberies. So this, of course, leads Johnny Utah into going undercover as a surfer, learning how to surf and getting in good with the surfer community to figure out who's doing these robberies, which is where we get led to Patrick Swayze and his crew. Patrick Swayze playing Bodie, who is like a surfing guru, basically. And the intense emotional relationship that develops between the two of them. So it's been a while since I'd seen Point Break, and I had definitely, the first time I saw it, I was definitely like this movie's very gay. Watching it this time, kind of with that in mind, I was like, this is even gayer than I remembered it being. Just the intensity of the masculine relationships and the way that Kathryn Bigelow films these men. Like, I think there's a lot to talk about here. But first of all, like, Karen, what are your thoughts? Where do you want to start with all this?
So I remember seeing this, like, maybe not right when it came out. I might have seen it on video some point later, but definitely while I was in high school. And at the time, I just loved Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves so much that it didn't occur to me that it was like super gay. And then I remember rewatching it I mean, I've seen it a bunch of times, but I remember watching it one day, like years later, and I was like, I think these two guys are actually in love with each other. It's like it just clicked for me one day. My eyes were more open and I was like, this is interesting. And it really is a different movie when you watch it through that lens. I also want to say, if this sounds a lot or reminds you a lot of the first Fast and the Furious movie, it's because they completely ripped it off. Anyway, just saying.
Well,
but
it's such a classic setup, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
it's the FBI agent who's like proving himself, and he's, as Gary Busey says, you're young, dumb, and full of cum, right? Like, but that's the thing. Like, they're actually, I don't think that's Gary Busey. I think that's
no,
their
it's John McGinley,
very angry boss, like who just shouts all of his lines. But that's the thing. I think that this film does, we talked about Jupiter Ascending a couple of weeks ago. This film does have an edge of camp to it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's that extremity of it. And I think some of it is because it's the 1990s, it's a little bit dated, but some is very deliberately kind of positioned there, that there is like that sort of externalization of all of these emotions, but it's these very, quote, stereotypically masculine emotions. So we do get like these roles of like, there's the bad guy and the good guy, and like, oh, they're crossing paths, they're crossing over, they're more like each other than they realize. We're going to see this in the one of the westerns that we're doing this month, right? That similar thing of like, they're the same but they're different. They love each other, they want each other, but they also can never cross that divide with each other. And that's part of the story, part of the tragedy, and also just sort of part of the extremity of the narrative.
Yeah. When we first meet both of them, like the movie opens on this blending of scenes. It's Johnny in like being tested at Quantico. It's pouring rain, so he's drenched, and like his shirt is sticking to him, and he's doing this whole like shootout thing, like test. We've seen in a bunch of FBI movies. And then you've got that intercut with Bodhi, who is surfing, so he's also soaking wet, but for different reasons. And so we see the two, and it's very like, we're seeing their bodies, we're seeing, but it's not, this is something you and I were texting about earlier in the week, that it's not female gaze. This is not, I mean, yes, women can enjoy looking at them, but that's not what's happening here. This whole movie, we see a lot of, torsos, we see a lot of the male form, but it doesn't feel like, oh, this is to get women to come and see this movie. This is doing something very different with that.
Yeah, it's definitely an example of the queer gaze. And, we've talked about the male gaze, we've talked about the female gaze on here, we've talked about the queer gaze before, but, it's always difficult to sort of explain what like because it is very much this vibe, right? It's like, this isn't, because when we talk about the male gaze, we tend to, it's all theories of gaze are about the relationship between the audience and the image, basically, and what perspective the camera is taking, who is looking, who's doing the looking, and who's being looked at. And you get sometimes a combination of them. I think that the male gaze is one that we understand the best because it has been so prevalent, because the theorizing of it has been, around particularly feminist film criticism. the female gaze is not like an inversion of the male gaze. It's not, women, a woman looking at a man in the same way, or the perception of the female audience, et cetera. It's about who's being objectified and who's being subjectified. The queer gaze is similar, and it's in a lot of ways the sort of using and then upending the male gaze. So in a lot of ways, this is basically these men being looked at as though they are women. The way that we are accustomed to having women observed and looked at by the camera and by extension by the male viewer, that's what's happening with the queer gaze in Point Break. It isn't a woman looking at men. It is basically the male viewer looking at men. Yeah. And I think that's contributed to by the subject matter of the story. This is a very masculine genre. This is an action movie. There's shootouts, there's fights, there's there's men yelling at each other all the time. There's this very sort of masculine, testosterone fueled narrative going on that is at the same time being queered. Like it's gay. It's very much like this, about this connection that is happening between men that is eroticized. Yeah.
And that is, I think, highlighted also by the fact that the one female character, whose name is Tyler, played by Laurie Penny, we don't really ever see her. We really don't see her naked. No. There's one scene I can think of where but it's a really emotionally charged scene where you kind of like her, she's moving around, she's got a robe on, and so the way the robe moves, it kind of shows her, but it's not like she's not the object of the camera at that point. It's just kind of the height of the emotions. So like the one female character in this movie where she's having sex with Johnny, you don't see her, there's no male gaze with her at all. So I think that highlights and sort of further supports this narrative.
Well, and so let's talk about Tyler a little bit, because there's one scene where Johnny is watching her, right? And what we get is this kind of triangulation going on where he's watching her, she's changing out of her bathing suit. She's doing it very demurely. Like you say, we don't see anything. He doesn't see anything. But it is definitely a little bit eroticized. But so he's observing her and we're observing him observing her. And so there's this kind of triangulation that's going on. And so it, at the same time, it is queered in that sense, because it isn't about the direct titillation of the audience and watching this woman stripping. It's not even about him being titillated by watching her stripping. And so it turns into this, what I think under a more male gaze, or honestly under a male director, would have been more eroticized. It isn't particularly. We get a couple of naked women actually in the film when there's the raid on the one group of surfers that turn out to not be the bank robbers. But so like they have like several girlfriends who are there who are like mostly naked. One of the things that struck me in that scene is that the one like naked woman who's running around literally just in a pair of underwear, that's it. She's beating the shit out of those men. She is like stabbing them in the back. Like it isn't eroticized. Her nakedness is not an erotic view. Like we're not looking at tits and ass, basically. That's not the way that the camera operates. We're watching this woman who is in her most vulnerable state, right? Stabbing armed men in the back, right? Just like losing her absolute shit. And so it changes kind of the valence of that. And I think it does, like the way that the women are looked at, it does affect like the valence of the entire film. It does kind of lend itself, as you say, to this idea of this being the queer gaze, of this being a queered film. To also mention about Tyler, as has been pointed out, our friend Nanina pointed this out, that Tyler is a full character. So she's not just she's not solely the kind of relationship between these two men, right? Although that is one of her functions, but she's also I would say that she's a fairly androgynous figure. She has a male name or an androgynous name. It can be the name of a man or a woman, right? She has short hair. She's like, and again, it's that lack of eroticization that we tend to look for eroticization in these kinds of films where, oh, we're going to see naked ladies, women in bikinis, stuff like that. And we don't get that at all with Tyler or with any of the other like minor female characters who pop in and out.
Right.
The eroticizing is very much the male body, the male form, and male relationships.
Which it would be easy to say, well, this is a female director, and so this is a female gaze movie, but as we talked about, that's not what's going on here. And the thing about this is, like, when you look at the story and what's happening here on the screen, Johnny is infiltrating this surfing group, sure, but that's really what the movie is about. It's not like the case that he's investigating is a means to and not an end, but a means to bring these two men together in the same circle. It's really about these two men and this relationship that is growing, but also that can't fully realize because of their circumstances, because of the two different worlds that they come from. And that's the thing, is like, this is a movie about these two men, and everything else is kind of incidental to just bring them together, but also to keep them apart.
Yeah, it's very much like, the sort of, it's like Romeo and Juliet. It's like no, but it is like a fated love story, right? In that sense, they're the cop and the outlaw, right? They're the sheriff and the villain. They obviously are going to come into conflict with each other. And in fact, I think it's obvious to the audience that Bodhi and his crew are the ones who are committing these bank robberies, but it's not obvious to Johnny, right? Or at least it's not obvious enough that he doesn't like click on it fairly early on. The point at which he realizes that they are the criminals is when he watches them surfing together. And sees this, because one of the things that keeps on getting repeated is like, these guys know each other, they know how to work together, they have it down, they have this fluidity to them. And he sees the way that these four men all are surfing together, and the fluidity of it, the flow of it, the beauty, like to a certain degree, the beauty of it. And it's something that he craves. He wants that connection. He wants that oneness, right, with this group, and particularly with Bodhi. And it's also something that then confirms for him, these are the men who are committing these crimes. So there is this like fluid, like, it's interesting to look at I think the way that these very homosocial relationships are represented, because you've got the FBI that is represented as being a very homosocial group, right? Almost all of the agents, the cops, etc., that are involved in this are men. And it's about conflict. Like there's a lot of yelling. there's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of one-upsmanship. And there's a lot of like at one point Johnny is like insulting his boss and saying like, you're just an old man who like is just mad that I'm this young dude, and like all of those things. And so they do eventually come to this sort of understanding, Johnny and Pappas, who's the one played by Gary Busey. And they begin to work together and they begin to have a fluidity together, but there's always this edge of conflict. The surfer group, there's much less conflict, actually. There is that camaraderie and that fluidity and that closeness that is it's a different kind of masculinity in some ways, even though there's still these kind of homosocial relationships at play.
Yeah, there's almost a little bit of a cult element to them, though, too, where I keep doing that. Bodhi is sort of the leader. Not sort of, he is the leader, but he's sort of like a cult leader with this group. Everybody looks to him. He's very much the one that's in charge. He calls the shots. Sometimes they may question his orders, but ultimately they're still going to do whatever he says, no matter what they think of it. So it's interesting. I wanted to really quickly just go back and clarify a little bit more. And this is more of like supporting our point that this is not a female gaze movie. This is a queer gaze movie. And that is, I think, one of the things too about if this were a female gaze, then not only in the way that the men are photographed, but also in the way that the story is told, it like there would be either more of a love triangle between Bodhi, Johnny, and Tyler, or there would be a more fully fleshed out, developed love story where you'd really be on Tyler's side. And because she's just sort of there in the middle, and yes, she is a fleshed out character, but you're not feeling like, oh my gosh, I need Johnny and Tyler to get together, because that's not the point. Then that, I think, is part of the evidence to back up our hypothesis here.
There's no subjectification of Tyler. There's no explicit objectification of her either, which I think is where like we get away from that issue of the male gaze. But it ain't about her, right? and she's an important character. She's a fleshed out character. She's well performed, but it's not really about her. It's not about women at all, really. And that's, and I want to say, I think that we have a tendency to be like, well, if it's not about women, it's okay. It's okay for Point Break to be about this homosocial culture and this masculine relationship. It's just that, I agree with you. There is no subjectifying of Tyler, and there is no, like, she is an important character who's well fleshed out, but she is a support for the central male relationship.
What she wants and what her goals are not the point of the story.
And she's also not a sexy lamp, like, which I think is where you get away from where you also get away from that male gaze, and where you brought up Fast and the Furious. A lot of the Fast and the Furious, particularly in the really early films, kind of leaned into women as sexy lamps, and they moved away from that. But so I think that is where you get Fast and the Furious films tend to be more male gaze, less queering. Although you can make an argument probably for queering as well, depending. Then
it's all about family. They're family.
But then this film, which is much more queering the relationship between these two men.
Very much, yeah.
To think, I agree with you about that cult-like status. And in fact, I think Tyler remarks on that at one point when they're all around the bonfire. She says, like, I think she actually refers to Bodhi as kind of like a cult leader, that it's like, this is too testosterone for me, too much testosterone for me, I gotta walk away. And it's true, and it's like she's pointing out something that probably only a female character would understand, is that Bodhi is also selling a viewpoint. He's espousing a viewpoint. He's espousing a way of life that it seems in contradiction to the sort of the man, right, which is what Johnny represents, but also what attracts Johnny to Bodhi is this alternative world. Is like this other opportunity to be something else, and to be something else in the company of men and led by a man. In a way that he can't with the FBI, that he can't, like, it's also important, I think, that he's established as he's a quarterback who, like, he had a really promising career ahead of him. He got injured. It's like Bodhi knows who he is, even like they meet, and Bodhi figures out very quickly, like, you're this quarterback from Ohio State. So again, there's like this meeting of these masculine cultures going on, and the surfer culture is represented definitely as a different kind, but also very similar homosocial relationships, a homosocial culture. And that eventually leads to tragedy. Like, that's one of the things that happens in this one. This isn't a happy film in a lot of ways, but it is reaching out to this desire that these men have for that closeness, that fluidity, that camaraderie with other men, that combination, the combination of desire as well, like the intensity of that relationship, that this is what's important to them. And that intensity like develops between Johnny and Bodhi to the point that like they're rolling around in the dirt together at one point. They're fighting, but they're also fucking. Like it is like this sort of, you know, I joked to you the other night, I think, when I was watching, and I was like, you know, if these guys had just fucked nasty, everything would have been fine. And it's true. It's true. What they really badly want to fuck each other. That's really what's going on there. There is that like intense desire, but they can't do it. They can't cross that line with one another. And I think that that's what is so good in this movie in a lot of ways, is that it's really getting at those aspects of male homosocial cultures where they can't get there.
Yeah. And there's a couple of scenes where they're wrestling, and like one of them is when they're skydiving, and it's not the fun skydiving scene. It's when Johnny jumps out of a plane without a parachute, catches up to Bodhi, and then they're kind of wrestling around in the air, and it's like this really, it's heightened emotion, it's extreme danger, and it's this visual substitute for the sex that they cannot be having. Just like so many elements at play here that are it really heightens the emotion and expresses the emotions that they can't otherwise.
And like when they first meet, so they meet, there's a little bit of tension because Johnny is being taught by Tyler, right, how to surf, and it's obvious that Tyler and Bodhi had like, it's not really to apply this, it's not really a romantic relationship, it's a sexual relationship, right? But they had a casual,
there's no relationship, like there's no emotional attachment between the two.
They had like a casual thing together, basically. But so there's a little bit of, you know, that tension, and then they all play football, and they wind up, what happens is that like Bodhi gets a hold of the ball, and
super straight, super not gay sport of football.
You know what? Weirdly enough, total like tangent. Weirdly enough, back in high school, we had to do like senior theses. So we got to like choose a subject, and we had to just write like a 10-page paper on our subject, do a whole bunch of research and everything. One of the things that I suggested to my gay male friend was that he should do a report called "Football is Totally Gay." And then the subtitle would have been "Homoeroticism in American Sport." Like, and I don't remember. I think he actually did propose it to the teacher, and the teacher was like, "No." but it's just like, like that's the thing. A lot of these homosocial cultures are also really gay. Like it's that thin line between hyper heterosexuality and homosexuality, like, and particularly when it comes to male culture. But so you've got these two, they're playing football on the beach and everything, and then what starts out as like this friendly kind of touch football game turns into very quickly this competition between Johnny and Bodhi, where Bodhi like breaks away with the ball, and Johnny just goes after him and eventually tackles him into the surf. And again, they're like rolling around together. And that's the point at which like some of the other guys are like, "Oh my God, like what is the matter with you?" And Bodhi's like, no, he's cool. I know who this guy is. Like, but that's the thing. It's that like, that the sort of fighting and substitute for fucking, and that tension between that desire for touching each other, for connecting with each other, that is like, it's somewhere between violence and sex, and it's like right on that line. And then we get it again a number of times, but you mentioned the second skydiving scene. The first skydiving scene has that tension as well, because that's the point at which it's after Johnny has run after, but like him and Pappas have tracked down the ex-presidents. There's this big car chase, and Johnny reveals himself to be a cop, right? And so everybody knows who he is.
Yeah.
And he knows, like, he's got to be aware that, like, there's no way they didn't notice,
Right.
like, my face.
Yeah.
Who's running after them, particularly nearing the end. And I think we should talk about this in a minute, particularly nearing the end and the kind of the final chase between just him and Bodhi. But in that skydiving scene, like, so he knows they know, and that he knows. And so there's this tension already, and there's all this talk about, there's all this like switching parachutes, right? They're gonna go skydiving, but that's the
well,
thing.
because Johnny asks when Bodhi hands him his parachute, Johnny asks, "Who packed this chute?" And Bodhi's like, "What? I did. What? You don't trust me? Here, have mine." And then they're making fun of the lack of trust, which is a totally legitimate concern.
Yeah, it's, but it is like that tension. And I think it's that tension that runs through everything here, because a mistake, because they're surfers as well. They're surfers, they're bank robbers, etc. Johnny's a cop. A mistake can mean you're dead, right?
Yep.
But there's that tension that's the excitement. That's the thrill of it, is that if you make a mistake, if your chute doesn't open, right? If you can't trust everybody around you, you're dead. Right. And that's kind of why you do it at the same time. And that does have a sexual element to it. So you get this great skydiving scene, this extensive skydiving scene of like these guys barreling out of this airplane and pushing closer and closer. Like, when do you pull the chute? At what point, who do you trust, right? Do you trust that your chute is going to open? And I think it's like, it comes down to Johnny and Bodhi kind of falling together and them kind of pushing each other of like, who's going to open they're playing this game of chicken. Who's going to open the chute first? And it is very sexually charged.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then the chute opens, and that's sort of the release.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. It's like you got to build the tension higher and higher, and then you get to the climax. Like, that's the fun of it. That's why you do it.
Exactly.
Can't get there too fast.
Exactly.
But it's all there, right? It's all like so close to the surface that you're almost like, there's no way you don't know what is going on here. But they never like break through that. They never break through to actually these guys need to kiss, right? They never quite get there. And that's also, I think, the pleasure for the audience, because we see it happening, but we never quite get there.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. There was something else I was going to bring up right there, and I forgot. Oh well, it'll come back to me.
So I think that, going off of that a little bit, I think that is, one of the things that we get in these films with these heavy homoerotic subtexts, is that there is a sort of thrill of it, that this is particularly something like this, where I feel like there's an underlying knowledge that the filmmakers know what they're doing. Right? Oh, yeah. I find it very difficult to believe that Kathryn Bigelow or that Swayze and Reeves were unaware of that homoerotic subtext. I don't know, obviously, but you get things like that. Now, it's interesting for a film in like the 90s versus some of the other films we're going to watch, which are from like the 1950s, where you can't, right? In the 1950s, you can have homoerotic subtext, but you're never going to have two dudes making out. That's not going to happen, or two women making out. But so you have to have this sort of this undercurrent that is going on to sort of wink at the audience, to let everybody know what's going on, but also you're not going to have that. But you could come closer to it in the 90s. You could be more explicit about it. And this film, I think, comes as close as they possibly can.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this movie couldn't be explicitly gay, especially in 1990 or 1991, um, because it just, the world was not in a place to accept that yet. But we were living this is just a couple years after Top Gun, which we have talked about before, and is widely recognized for its homoeroticism, and not just because of the beach volleyball scene. Like that entire movie is dripping with it. And yeah, and so it's like this, I think, I've read articles, I've listened to a lot of interviews with people, writers, with actors, creators who talk about how the thing with Hollywood is you have to kind of push that envelope a little bit more, get people to accept certain things until you can be really explicit with it. And so you have to pave the way. And so I think that what we see in the 80s and into the 90s is more of these homoerotic stories that are not gay but are totally gay, just to get us more used to that, so that eventually they can just tell these very explicitly gay stories.
Well, and there's a little bit of a joke going on as well, I think. And I think that there is a joke being played on the straight audience, particularly straight male audience. You're talking about, again, Top Gun, military, right?
Right.
These action movies that are really popular with straight men, and these environments that are really popular with straight men. They're just like, no, these are masculine men being masculine, right?
Right.
And you watch it's just like, dude, it's totally gay. Like it's just like, dude, they want to fuck each other. Like that's what's going on. And so
exactly,
it's this like exploration of, but also a little bit of humorous kind of poking at these homosocial cultures. And it is kind of like, man, if you guys would just fuck each other, everything would be a lot easier. Like fewer people would die. And and that's kind of what happened. Like so many people die in Point Break.
Just about everybody dies, except for Johnny and Tyler.
Yeah, like, and they kind of, they walk away, right? But all of these people, like, because of the self-destructiveness, really, of both of these ways of life, of both the cop and the criminal, right? Eventually, like, it's not going to end well. And you do kind of like, if you guys would just talk to each other and maybe like get out of all of this posturing, but of course they can't. That's why in some ways Point Break is a tragedy, because there's no way watching this. It's like, there's no way these men would ever sleep together. There's no way these men would ever like admit their feelings for each other. Right. It would never become romantic because they couldn't, like, they could never get there. And of course it's going to end badly as a result.
Exactly.
I also do have to say there's so many double entendres in this film.
What do you mean, Lauren? Whatever do you mean?
Not unlike Top Gun, but I mean, some of my favorites, like, he'll take you to the edge over it. Which I love that's the description. Or my personal favorite is, I know it's hard, Johnny. I know you want me so bad it's like acid in your mouth. It's like, dude, come on. Like, this is not about, oh, you want to arrest me so badly. It's just like, that's not what he wants to do. No. You know that's not what he wants to do.
Exactly.
It's just like, gay, super gay, just kiss.
Yep, and Bodhi's just dangling that carrot.
Or you pull it first. Like, all of that. It's just like, if you stop hitting each other and just fuck, please.
Yep, everyone would be better off.
So anything else you want to talk about this?
I mean, so many things, but
yeah.
Just I think at the end of the day, I love that, and like you said earlier, I don't believe that we live in a world where any of the people making this movie didn't know what they were making. And so I love that Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves, well, Keanu Reeves is famously bisexual, but but that in Patrick Swayze, there's a lot of questions about him, but that they would be like, yeah, let's do this movie, and that they, I really love how fun it is. It's so silly, but it's not ridiculous. It's just a fun movie to watch, to
Yeah.
pick apart, to look at. I the way that it ends with Johnny needing to walk away and letting Bodhi just go out there into this 50-year storm. He's been chasing him all over the world and finally catches up with him at the farthest place he can get to, which is in Australia, for this storm, and then making that decision to let Bodhi have his dream of going out on a wave, and then just walking away from that. And that's sort of the end of his career too, because he's not gonna continue doing this. Like, the chase is over. He's gotten everything he can out of it, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of the end for both of them.
Yeah, and there isn't this conclusion of like, one of the things that Johnny keeps repeating is just like, you've got to pay for this, I have to take you in, all of that. And it's very like, in a lot of ways, it's very much a Western. Like,
Yeah.
it has those elements to it. And I think that it's interesting given, again, some of the other films we're going to talk about, of like, that the law has to prevail regardless, right, of whether or not it's right. And that's what Johnny is faced with at the very end, because he can keep the handcuffs on Bodhi. He can stop. He makes a decision to let Bodhi go, to go to the sea, basically,
Yeah.
and that's the way that his life is going to end. And it does kind of, at a more serious note, it draws into question that like, no one's right here, right? But if you think about it, if Johnny hadn't pursued this in the way that he did, nobody would be dead.
Yeah.
All of these people, including people at the bank, including like, all of the surfers, everybody, like these guys were not, they were carrying guns, but they never killed anybody. They didn't want to kill anybody. There's all of this suffering and death that happens because of this pursuit of the law and this desire to bring this sort of wildness to heel. And it's something that's never going to succeed, and it's never going to be the ending that you want, basically.
Right.
And so the only ending, really, the only just ending, is for Bodhi to go off into the sea. I do want to point out, just in terms of Patrick Swayze, so we've talked about this film in the past. 4 years later, he does Tu Wong Fu. Thanks for everything.
Yes,
Julie
he
Newmar.
does. That's true.
And so, like, where he famously plays a drag queen with two of the other most masculine men, stars of the 1990s, like, and so props to Patrick Swayze on that one. And yeah, it makes sense. He's in at least two, probably more. I'd have to Roadhouse also, you kind of, there's a lot of homoeroticism in that one.
I did love the reference to Patrick's Roadhouse in this movie too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of homoeroticism and explicit homosexual characters in Patrick Swayze's career. So props to him.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts about Point Break? I'm certain there's more we could talk about, but
it's just good.
At the end of the day, it's a good film. Like, it's really well made. It's incredibly entertaining. Even some of the more kitschy moments, like, oh, what are you doing, bro? Like, all of that, just all of the surfers speak and everything, which it's hard not to laugh at,
Yeah, there are some little elements that are like, oh, you only really get this if you are from this area, like just the way that they hate the guy from the valley, like, go back to the valley, dude, and stuff. And it's like just the what's the word I'm looking for, the
regionalism, specificity.
Yeah, that wasn't the word I was looking for, but that is actually perfect. Yeah. And how just people like to be tribalism. That's what I was
Yeah.
looking for. Of of Southern California. It's like, yeah, it doesn't, even if you could be 20 minutes apart, but it's like, no, we don't accept you here. You're not you're not from the beach, so you're not one of us. And just those details, and even within the FBI department too, and yeah.
Yeah, the hot shot, like
Hmm.
it's just a hot shot kid who's trying to
Yeah.
be
Exactly.
it is so male. It is so male. It's the like, yeah, it's that posturing that if you take even a little bit of a step back and look at it, just like, guys, stupid.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna close us out for Point Break. Next week, I believe we're going to be talking about another totally gay film where they should have just kissed and everything would have been fine. Vera Cruz, starring Burt Lancaster and Gary Cooper.
Totally straight.
Very
Westerns are
straight.
totally straight.
As we have mentioned before, we even talked about this, that we could have just done nothing but Westerns. We do have 2 Westerns on this list. But
Well,
yeah,
technically 3, because Point Break can be considered one too.
yeah, like it's very gay. The Western genre is very gay, and again, I think a lot of it does come to that, that homosocial culture, masculinity, hyper masculinity, is a feature of gay culture, and there's a whole subculture of gay culture that is about hyper masculinity, and it tips over real fast, guys.
Yeah.
So that's going to be next week, which I am very much looking forward to. I think it'll be fun. And of course, we would like to thank all of our wonderful, lovely, kind patrons, who include Abby, Audra, Brian, Connor, Estefania, Ferdinand, Heather, James, Judy, Carriata, Matt, Michelle, MK, Monty, Nanina, Noel, Robert, Roxy, Steve, and Sharon. Thank you so much for supporting us, guys. Our Patreon is patreon.com/Citizen Dame. We will be finishing up A League of Their Own, and I think we're going to move on to a new series after that. Those are our bonus episodes, so of course, if you join us, you get those bonus episodes plus our past bonuses, which include Our Flag Means Death, which is very gay, explicitly gay too.
Oh yeah.
It's not a buddy story, like,
no, it is not.
and A League of Our Own is also explicitly gay. These are queer people.
Yes.
And so our Patreon is patreon.com/Citizen Dame, and of course you can also throw us a couple of bucks if you would like, ko-fi.com/Citizen Dame. And of course, you can visit our website. Our website is citizendamepod.com, and you can get in touch with us many different ways. We have our email, citizendamepod@gmail.com, as well as our various socials. We are on Instagram and Blue Sky @CitizenDamePod, and Letterboxd @CitizenDame. And of course, you can get in touch with us individually. Karen, where are you?
I'm on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Karen M. Peterson.
And I am on Instagram and Letterboxd, there we go, at LH Business. Thank you so much for listening to us. We will talk to you later.
Bye.
Hell, I don't know. They think there's some kind of death squad around here.
What's their program?
Brains are wired wrong. They're into some bad shit.
Like what? Illegal shit?
Maybe, I don't know. That's not what I'm talking about. They only live to get radical. They don't have any real understanding of the sea, so they'll never get the spiritual side of it.
Hey, you're not gonna start chanting or anything, are you?
I might.
This is me.
So, you still haven't figured out what riding waves is all about, have you? It's a state of mind. It's that place where you lose yourself and you find yourself. You don't know it yet, but you got it. It's right there. I saw you with those guys. You're a pit bull. You didn't hesitate, and they didn't back you down an inch. And that is very rare in this world.
Well, thanks for stepping in.
De nada. Later. Oh, hey. I'm, having some people over at my house tonight if you want to come.
Sure.